Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable brought to you by First Star Therapy. I'm your host, James Gardner, and this is a platform for the pros, by the pros. Passionate pros, organic dialogue. Let's chat. Thanks for listening. Let's roll. Welcome to Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable. This is session 8. Really special guest tonight for multiple reasons, and we'll get into that. You get to know Chris a little bit, get to know our relationship a little bit, and his story. So I feel really, really privileged to have athletes like this and to have all of you that have your stories and give up your time to be in the room and hang out and discuss this stuff. And I think we're gaining a little bit of momentum. I mean, there's 23 in the room right now, which is great. We've had up to 43 in any given night, but the hits and stuff on YouTube and the feedback that I've been getting from you guys and from other people has been really, really great. So keep spreading the word. I know the word is getting out there. I know you guys are coming back, so there's got to be something good. Really good guests and some good stories so far, and a really good lineup to come, including tonight. So without further ado, just ground rules again. This is being recorded, again, to solve the world's problems as we look back in time or at the same time. So mind your P's and Q's to a certain extent, unless you want your P's and Q's out there on YouTube as it gets uploaded afterwards. All of the former guests' sessions are up on YouTube, as well as a little trailer and then a little challenge that I've issued to my colleagues down here in the Bahamas at the school that we work at, just sort of some physical health to tie into the mental health and during this physical distancing time. So feel free to jump on there and take a look at that and make it your own and send it with colleagues and friends and family members or whoever's in the house with you. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. Definitely going to be some resources that I'll touch on tonight in terms of stuff that I've relied on, stuff that I've upkept in terms of Chris's rehab and the scenarios that we went through. So those will be posted again in the discussion section with Chris's session once we get done. So make sure you check out the resources too. That'll go a little bit beyond the discussion on here. So without further ado, session 8, we have a really special guest, Chris Kolankowski. He's a professional football player in the CFL, recently signed a contract with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Chris grew up in Etobicoke, playing his amateur football in Etobicoke and high school football with the Etobicoke Eagles. He spent 2012 to 2016 at York University as a member of the Lions football program. And then he was drafted by the Toronto Argonauts in 2016. He then returned to school after that for his final year of eligibility after the preseason, spending the preseason with the Argos, and then re-signed in 2017, where he played 10 games, including the Grey Cup Championship, of which he is a member and was seen on TSN in a still shot that we can share at some point, holding the Grey Cup. Really exciting time, obviously. And then he dressed in 18 games with the Toronto Argos again in 2018, and then entered free agency for the duration of the 2019 season. And again, he's now a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We'll dive into that story and his path. That's his football story. I hope we get to know Chris as well. You guys get to know Chris a little bit, even this much of how I know Chris. What a resilient guy. Just you'll hear it through his stories of rehab. You'll hear it through his persistent demeanor with football and just the way he conducts his business on a daily basis. It's a pleasure to watch you, Chris. It was a pleasure to watch you growing up and continuing to grow up and now playing at the top level in Canada, man. It's been a terrific journey, and I love watching it from a distance. Really appreciate your time. And again, like, this is a story of unmatched will and grit, like up against it a lot of the time and just kept going, and a lot of good things happened. So Chris, again, thank you for taking your time on a Sunday night and hanging out with us here. I'll let you say hello and then we'll get started.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to get through this, see what happens, see how it goes.
All right. Well, some people, definitely some York contingent. We have a couple past and former guests in the room as well, so good to see, good to know. We have people from definitely Ontario, Saskatchewan. If you want to type in where you're at, that's awesome, into the chat box. That'd be cool. I know Sasha's here, who's the lead athletic trainer, and she's been a regular guest here or attendee here. She's the lead athletic trainer down here at the University of the Bahamas. So really a pleasure, Sasha, to have you in the room. Some former students that I've worked with, some great people that I talked to at CATA conferences, and we're all going to dive in. So the idea tonight is to get Chris's story from a football standpoint, definitely, and then for the therapists in the room and life. I shouldn't just say football, but life in general. And then for the therapists in the room, we'll dive into the rehab, some really interesting injuries, not from our end, not from his, but in terms of rehab and return to play. So we'll go right through from time of injury all the way through to return to play, what that looked like and felt like on his end, what that looked like and felt like on my end. I'll speak for myself because that's who was in the room. I was the lead therapist, the head therapist with the York football program for Chris's, the large majority of Chris's career, I think your whole career actually at York. So we'll jump in right there. So let's go social distancing period, what you've been doing to stay active and engaged with your life for the most part at this point.
Honestly, it hasn't been much change for me personally. Just I got a bunch of gym equipment. My gym closed down, Apex Training Center. They let me rent a bunch of equipment. So my training and day-to-day hasn't changed too much, just obviously a lot of inconveniences, but pretty minor compared to most people's change of lives. Lucky enough, I live by the water in Toronto, so able to go on nice walks, don't have to worry about being stuck in a suburb kind of thing at the lakefront. But yeah, apart from that, the hardest thing actually is trying to find a field to run because all the sports fields in Ontario are shut down. So surprisingly, finding a good patch of grass to run being the hardest. Didn't see that coming. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And we talked about that the other day, right? You're dealing with a deep thaw or like a little bit of a thaw, and then it freezes again, and then like what the main
deep parts. Really mushy out there right now.
Yeah, right. And then the closure, obviously, with this thing. So as far as this goes, I know this has been tough for everybody, and again, part of this chat and this platform is to sort of normalize it for everybody. Know that everybody's struggling on different levels. But I'd like to dive in with you a little bit as to your career, definitely. But for right now, everything's okay with you, and your partner works in the hospital setting, so she's okay. She's a nurse, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, she's an oncology nurse, so she's dealing with it a little bit, but obviously that floor is really sensitive to any kind of infections and viruses, so they're being extra careful with her floor. So she's not exactly dealing with COVID patients, just you really have to be cleared to get close to the floor she's on. So it's a lot busier, but she's not dealing with the mass ICU, mass ventilators being used. So she's doing all right, considering.
All right, well, perfect. And I'm sure that is a bit of a worry on a daily basis for you guys, just going in and out of the hospital in those settings.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, nice to hear that everything's okay, and we'll hope it remains that way as things start to hopefully turn around. Yeah, as well. So have you picked up anything new, like things that you've never done in the past or you wouldn't think about doing because of all this let's not say all of this, but this little bit of extra time that you found yourself with?
I was planning to buy a keyboard, start kind of teaching myself piano, but then that was last week. But then my O-line coach from Winnipeg hit me up with a bunch of film I have to watch. So for last week, that's kind of pushed back that. But that's something I'm trying to get into is teaching myself an instrument. So I think I'm going to try keyboard for a little bit.
Nice. Well, maybe you just come up with like some, I don't know, some interesting keyboard patterns to like the plays that they're running, and it becomes time. Something like that.
Work them off each other a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm going to ask this, like, get it out of the way and don't forget. Have you watched Tiger King? I know this is on.
I've watched that. I binged that in like 3 days.
Okay. All right. So down in the chat box, that's the actual record. I went back through the scores of people that we've had on to date, and Dr. DiNardo's in the room. I can see him watching, but I didn't actually ask him that question, so maybe we'll ask him later. But I went back, and Allie had said her daughter had watched it, so I counted that as a no. So that'll make it 4 for yes, 3 for no, and 1 is Dr. DiNardo pending as like a hard maybe. We're not sure. He'll give us a yes. He's shaking his head no, so I'll update that straight now to 4 and 4. That's 4 yeses and 4 no's in Tiger King. So that's also posted in Jamal's chat from the session we had with Jamal last week. The Tiger King update as a discussion, because I didn't really have any articles or anything to post, and I know everybody was interested in that. So, all right, awesome. So Tiger King is a yes for you and a hard yes. Yeah,
big yes.
Yeah, you knew that one was coming. Would you say it's the best show right now on Netflix?
No, but definitely the most. It's a roller coaster.
All right.
There's obviously better quality TV out there, but this one keeps you guessing the whole time. So it's,
all right. Okay,
pretty good.
I don't know. It's starting to pull at me a little bit. And we're so back and forth for yes and no. I'm like, I don't really count for anything. I'm still a hard no, but I feel like it's softening. And then you mentioned roller coasters. So today we spent a good portion of like the morning to lunch building a roller coaster in the little playroom with a bunch of tracks that connected and like 2 things. We made a video of it and we turned it into a movie. I'll send it to you. Maybe you could check it out. I'm sure a little guy, I'd love to hear your review of it. Anyway, okay, great. So a little bit of Tiger King, sure. Keyboard maybe, and lots of film. So that's not new for you. This guy is, like you said, this guy's grit and hard work all over him. He spends time with the film. He spends time in the gym. He spends time taking care of himself, learning about himself, and that was always a few of the things that I really admired about you as a player in university, and then obviously beyond to where you're at, just from a football side, and I'm sure that translates to your life as well. Walk us through your signing with the Blue Bombers. I know it wasn't really out of nowhere, but at the same time, like you had 2019 not on a roster. You look great, man. You look like a big, strong guy. Never did before, but you still look good and strong, and the beard is tight. And walk us through the signing with the Blue Bombers and how that came about.
Yeah, so in 2019, I re-signed with the Argos for my second contract, and it was all looking good. A 3-year deal, I think. And then in April, just after Easter, they released me out of the blue, kind of thing. Happens in the CFL. It's part of the business. Feels like a stab in the back, but really that's just business as usual in the CFL. The whole 2019 season was really just me talking to 4 or 5 teams, asking what I'm doing, what I'm up to. So I stayed ready. Had to pick up a couple full-time jobs. One was in an industrial bakery, which is just 40 hours a week as a manager. And then another was from September until March, actually, was geotechnical drilling. So pretty out of nowhere. Pretty drill operator. So that was a tough job because the hours were anywhere from like high 40s to low 60 hours a week. Yeah. So doing that while still training was pretty tough. But Winnipeg was in contact with me pretty much throughout the off season. And then September they had a workout in Cincinnati. They said they'd waive the fee, so I drove down, got a hotel, went to the workout, did very well. Assistant GM said he liked what he saw, but didn't really have a spot available. So sat around for the rest of the year, watched them win the Grey Cup. And then in February, I made a workout video to show I'm still in shape, sent it out. And within a couple of days, they were starting to talk about signing me on board. So it all worked out in the end, but it's a pretty long off season. So.
Yeah, well, awesome. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad you got a contract. I'm glad somebody saw your tape and acknowledged the value of it. Jamal was on here. You were actually in the room on Wednesday, and he said that big Polish guy, he's just like, I don't even know if he might be asking neighbors if they can put their houses on either end of the squat bar at this point and see if they can squat the 2 neighbors on either side of your folks' place. Yeah. So
still getting after it.
Yeah, and it's sort of similar with Jamal. It's like I was like, oh man, I wish I could have you stand up and everybody could see how big you are. But I think everybody can acknowledge that Chris is a big guy here. He's a big, thick beard, big, thick body. Played center and then a guard. Is that right, or just strictly center? Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Guard in my 4th year.
Right. So big, strong guy. The depth of from like chest to back is always, I've always like admired that about you. I try to give the guy a hug and it's like, I don't know, I need to get bigger arms. Anyway, I'm really, really pumped for you, man. When you told me that and just kind of, I've been trying to stay as involved as possible and connected and I heard that and really, really happy for you. Not a better person in the world that would deserve that based on your work, your personality and your perseverance through it all. So how about the draft? Go back in time and like getting ready for the draft. We won't dive into the injuries just yet because that's going to be part of the bulk. We're going to spend some time there. But what did you do to prep? I know it was recovery, but like mentally, where were you at in terms of getting drafted the first go around?
It was pretty much make it or break it for me. I didn't get to go to East-West because of an injury that we'll talk about, which is like the kind of a showcase game the year before the draft. So I knew I had to have a really good 4th year. Did very well in my 4th year. Put together some good film. So it was pretty in December, I think I found out I was invited to the regional combine. So from then it was just kind of talk to Adam, I think KP was the strength coach that year. So I kind of used them both a bit where I felt they could both help me the most. And just talk to them about how I should approach the training, what I need to change. But for the most part, just keep working. Just the same thing, just a little bit of a different goal, a different time to peak. And, mentally, there's a lot of excitement. Kind of getting excited to finally be able to go to a stage where I can be in front of the scouts rather than having to hope they're watching my film since I missed the East-West. So it's a really exciting time leading up to that. So really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it was awesome because I'm not sure, I won't speak for you, but I know in their earlier years at York, it was kind of like, okay, this is a kid who's played football for a long time, but like maybe this is going to be the end of it, in first year and second year. And then in third year and fourth year, really like it. I mean, it changed dramatically. You really bought in to yourself and your own worth and how much like you could bring by challenging yourself, pushing yourself, and then staying on board. It was really, really impressive journey for anybody who wasn't a part of it. Like these are stories like, I think your story as well, this could be a made-for-TV story of a Canadian athlete that just kind of, it's a struggle. It's not just as simple as, I get seen, I get scouted, and then I get signed. Like, you really got to work your tail off to get to where you got to and to continue on as well. So, again, man, kudos to you, and so happy for you, even though we're just sort of in a holding pattern. I hope things get rolling again and you can get out there on the field and stay there for a long time. Yeah. All right. So that was your draft and then your current status. So let's go back in time to your injuries. You've had a really interesting, from a therapy standpoint, from a medical standpoint, from a sports personnel standpoint, like you've had an interesting career when it comes to injuries. I know there's a really significant one in high school. You want to maybe start with that one and then we'll jump into the time that we had together.
Yeah, so grade 9, first year of high school football was going well. Got the starting job at center and all that. But I think my 4th game in late October ended up fracturing 3 vertebrae in my back. Had compression fractures in the thoracic spine, kind of like right between the shoulder blades, I believe. I'm not sure exactly which ones, but yeah, that was a pretty tough one. But it was a good one to get all the worry out of the way for my mom because everything after that seems pretty insignificant. So yeah, first major injury was a broken back. 6 months in a brace, another couple months of easing back in. So I was able to play hockey towards the playoffs of that season. But yeah, it was a big that was a while in a brace. That was tough.
Yeah. So how did that one get diagnosed? Was it one injury, one impact, one fall, what happened just from a therapy standpoint? Did you have somebody on the sidelines? Do you wish you had somebody?
Yeah, so there's a therapist there, but my offensive coordinator of the junior football team was Dr. Chris Mazza, and he was a pretty well-known doctor in Toronto at the time. I think he was working mostly with concussions now, but he was an emergency room doctor at the time at Sunnybrook, and it was kind of one play, whistle went, I turned, and then the guy kind of grabbed me and hip tossed me, just kind of using his body weight, pulled me back, and I landed on top of my head. One impact, knew something was wrong. They immediately came out, immobilized me, stabilized my neck and all that. And then rolled me over, did the spot check. He saw nothing was out of place, so he said, okay, you might have broken your back. but you're okay to walk it off. So pretty much walked it off, sat on the sideline for the rest of the game. And after that, hospital x-rays, and by the end of the night, we knew what was going on. So it was pretty much just after that, 6 months of nothing. But it was pretty quick. I was lucky to have him on the sideline for that. It also would have been a lot more dramatic. And it was a high school buyout, so there's about 2,000 people there. In my first month at a new school, that would have been pretty rough to have that whole ambulance come on the field and all that. So
yeah,
he was there to kind of minimize the spectacle of it.
Right. Then you get this the psychosocial, the emotional component of things with athletes. And I mean, we don't spend a lot of time talking about that, but everybody we had on so far certainly touched on elements of injury from not just like the physical injury and rehab, but from what goes on between the years. And that's another valid point that I think just reiterates that for me as a practitioner and for everybody in the room, that's a huge component of things too, right? Just the scene and how it's handled and what happens afterwards and checking up on that side too. Just even a simple question like, how do you feel about how things were? Or did you have any questions about what happened? Yeah, and then for therapists as well, like we had a couple really good questions earlier on in sessions asking about, what's the worst injury you've seen? How do you prepare for these things? And this is just coming back around to making sure you're aware of all the things that can happen on the field. Listen, every time an offensive lineman goes down, for me, I probably spent an extra 6 to 8 seconds with my eyes on them before I moved upfield, because that doesn't happen a lot. Those are big bodies. There's a lot of commotion that goes on at the line. There's knees falling on heads. There's heads in helmets where the helmet rotates and the head doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of things, and there's big equipment. So sometimes it looks a lot worse. And then you guys are notorious for just like lying face down on the ground and not really getting up until it's time to move. I know
kind of gathering ourselves. Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to get back up off the ground. So sometimes it's seconds where I'm like, I got a toe on the edge of the sideline, waiting to go out there. And then all of a sudden you get up and you're just like, the earth smelled really nice or something. You need to spend a little bit extra time down there. So always, yeah. So football for me was always an area that I would keep my eyes, even as the ball went downfield. And that's where having a team of therapists makes a lot of sense for some of these sports. So if you're out there on your own with football, that makes it a little bit more difficult to be everywhere and be eyes everywhere. So even just asking coaches to like, hey, I'm from a therapy standpoint, if you're out there on your own, there's only 2 of you, really getting in touch with the coaches, knowing who's there in terms of a skill set. Like, hey, I'm going to track the ball. If I'm just following the play all the time, I'm missing a whole lot that's going on in football. So that highlights that for me as well, that I think is crucial in football and hockey and some of these high speed and collision sports where we tend to get a little bit caught up as almost as fans following the play and hoping we can high five when York scores a touchdown. But no digs. But yeah, you know how that goes. So yeah, that highlights a couple things. So the rehab was okay with that. That was grade 9, you said, and then you went through high school. We won't dive into too much more in high school. First year you came into York, and this is where I'll just, again, let me just jump in here before you describe it. But we do medicals, and these are crucial. Okay, so this is beyond, like, if you don't have the resources to have a physician in the room or have somebody check in with a physician, you can always ask athletes to have something signed before they get to wherever you are, saying they've been seen by their family doctor and they're fully cleared for activity, right? Or to disclose any any conditions that pre-existing conditions, these types of things, so you at least get a little bit of history. We were lucky enough to have a history that we did online at York, may or may not still be the same. So I was diligent in reading through those with the student therapists as well, to make sure we at least knew something. We knew your name, we knew if there was an allergy or something like that coming in, and then we would have medicals. So every one of the athletes would come into the room, see a doctor, see me, see the student therapist, meet face to face. And that for me was a big deal as a therapist, to make sure that I got your name, I knew what you looked like, and then I could put you to the computer screen of your history, and I made a point of having really, really long days early on, so that was crucial. And like I've said before, it's like getting to know your athletes on every level that you can. It goes a long way, especially in football, because then all of a sudden things change when equipment gets on and things start happening. So, yeah, so you came in first year. And maybe, yeah, let's start with that. And first year coming in was a bit of an impeded start, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah. So about 3 weeks before that, I was working a landscaping job. Ended up having a seizure at work, and part of that seizure was smashing my head off a wheelbarrow while landscaping. And yeah, so I was a little bit of a hiccup going in, something we had to clear up. No underlying problems, but obviously there's a lot of.
Yeah, you're just breaking up as soon as you started telling that story. We lost your picture and you. We can't really even hear you right now. So I don't know if you need to just reset. Hopefully you could come back. But really what happened, the period in time was not long enough for us to get clearance through our physicians at York. So Chris had a seizure. We won't get into the details of really what happened afterwards, but ultimately what we needed to do, he's just so you guys are aware, he just signed out, he'll sign back in. So he had a seizure at work while working in landscaping, and then obviously we needed to get him to go through a whole bunch of procedures medically to get him cleared. But more importantly than getting him cleared to play football was making sure that he was healthy, right, for his own longevity. So, Chris, are you there? Can you?
Yep. Sorry about that. Just did.
Yeah, I don't know. It's your maybe.
Yeah, it's acting up a little bit.
Very good. I think you're okay now.
Yep, good to go. Yeah, disconnected there. I heard what you were saying at the end there.
Yeah, so you just walk us through so then you had the emergency doctor, and we were relying on the emergency doctor. And so in team situations, definitely in professional sports, like you have a set of team doctors, and that's where you're going to rely on for the medical clearance and the issues and all these kinds of things. But you were dealing with an emergency doctor at the time who was not your family doctor. Your family doctor and your emergency room doctor were not really connected. And then we had a third doctor who was at the time, our team physician at York. So we had sort of three doctors, and we're trying to tie the dots all together. So from a logistics standpoint, pretty difficult to navigate, because sometimes doctors are not really as easily accessible as just picking up the phone and saying, who is on call in the emergency room? Can I reach this doctor? These kinds of things. So from a logistics standpoint, that took a bit of time. But maybe you can just walk us through, I don't know if you recall some of the stuff that we had you do in those 3 weeks while you were waiting for clearance. Maybe you can touch on that if you recall any of that stuff.
Yeah, mostly. So following that, I had to take the epilepsy test, which I already had planned, but it overlapped the football, so we wanted to get that done. I had to take the EKG for check the heart. And then apart from that, it was after the first 3 or 4 days, it just became normal return the play protocol, just because of the concussion side of it. Make sure everything was good, because I had some pretty bad symptoms for about a week and a half there. So I was getting pretty close to when football was starting. So we had to be careful with that too.
Yeah, exactly. So from our end, we weren't trying to overstep boundaries in terms of let's rush to getting back. We'll wait for all the medical tests to be done, monitor you based on the recommendations medically. And then what we were trying to do was manage, evaluate, and progress within our scope of practice in terms of the concussion specifically. So there were some overlapping diagnoses that we were working with, but all of which needed clearance beforehand. Again, for football, certainly the start of university career and beyond, but more so for the human being that's on the other end of the screen right there. So, so a little bit of a tough start, but then once you got going, you got in there, got back on the field, everything got cleared, and you are here now, playing in the CFL, winning great cups, doing all these things. So it's a pretty cool story now, not at the time. I know it was really, really frustrating for you and for me and for us as a therapy staff. It was sort of, we were bound. We always want to try and move things along as quickly as possible, but honestly, sometimes it comes down to just simple logistics of connecting the dots with everybody and making sure that we're as thorough as possible, especially in something that may have been very significant. Luckily for all of us, it wasn't, and for you especially, to get on the field and stay on the field from that point. So yeah, that was an early entry into university football for you and for me, and as a staff. that was a learning experience. And I think from that point on, we sort of, our relationship grew from that. We got to know one another a little bit more than probably you wanted to at the time, looking back. But then we went on from there. I think the next significant injury for you was in third year, right? And then well, there was the one before that, right? It was third year.
I broke my hand in second year, but that was just put a cast on it play, so that wasn't too big of a deal. How much rehab, just kind of let it heal. So that was a quick one.
Yeah. The football injury, the football athlete mentality is just a broken hand. Just put a cast on, and I'm back out on the field, and we'll find a way to freaking make padding and make it a. I don't need a hand. I'll just punch people and do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy's strong.
Yeah, it wasn't my snapping hand, so it was not much of a worry, honestly. Yeah.
That's right. But at the same time, like even with one hand, probably stronger than most defensive. Probably anybody in the youth sports at that point, anyway, with one arm. But so third year was a game against down the road, right downtown U of T.
Yep.
We were heading away from the CN Tower, right? We were at that end of I recall that, and just give us a rundown of that one. That was your right leg, I think.
Yeah, so is at center, you're in the middle of it's pretty much a mosh pit. There's bodies flying everywhere. It's probably one of the higher risk positions for lower body injuries because of all the bodies falling. We got guards beside me who are 300 plus pounds, so body falls on you, it's pretty tough. And yeah, I was just setting to the left, had a one-on-one block with a D lineman. And then mid-play, one of our O-linemen tossed a defensive lineman, hit another guy who landed on my leg just below the knee, and had all my weight on that leg. One thing we're taught is to go limp. If anyone falls on our legs, just go down, accept it, try and preserve yourself. As I was doing that, heard a loud pop, ended up breaking my leg. Knew pretty well instantly something was very wrong, but didn't know what. I remember you and Timmy came out on the field. You were asking what's wrong, and I said, I don't know, it's gone. Don't know what it is, but it's gone. You're like, ankle, no, knee, no, in between, something's gone. It just wasn't right. Got it moving around, felt the grind, we pretty much knew on the spot what it was. I forget, I think it's the fib, right?
Yeah, you got it.
I get those two mixed up. So yeah, that happened. Got carried to the back, hopped in the ambulance, and that was it. Saved me some pain of being in the end of that game. That was a pretty tough one for the guys. But by the time I found out the final, I had some good painkillers that kind of washed that over. But yeah, that was a tough one. I think I was in a little bit of shock. I was yelling. Just hearing my leg break was pretty shocking for me. So.
Yeah, and I think the shock was actually the score of that game, and that might have been what you heard. Anyway, we won't talk too much on that front, but yeah, so this was one where if you, again, like knowing Chris and knowing an offensive lineman, Chris the offensive lineman, Chris the center, if he stays down, I already know in the back of my mind that that's something that's probably going to knock him out for a game. Like in my mind, innately, I know that if this type of athlete with this mentality stays down on the field, and it takes me or a student therapist or anybody to go out there to check on him, there's a good chance like this is a fairly significant injury. So yeah, so by the time I got out there, just from the therapy side, it was definitely like, you tell me what's going on. You were in this mashed up bunch of people, and I definitely didn't see it. You heard something, you felt something go, and as soon as somebody says that, I'm like, we're going, okay, what is it? Checking arterial flow, making sure that there's no loss in sensation in the lower limb and the foot and the ankle and these kinds of things. And then it's working your way from distal to the injury towards the injury site. So it wasn't just grab on it and wrench on it, but this is a calf and a lateral lower leg that is thick, like very, very strong, very muscular to palpate. You could not hammer on the fib head and get a reaction. So this is a very strong palpation of a lower limb to find the fib head, to find the fibula, and definitely could recreate that crepitus for sure. And I think he just about jumped as high as the CN Tower from the ground. So those were pretty telltale signs for me as a therapist. Again, knowing the athlete on the field, if he's staying down, this is not just a cry wolf. This is not just trying to buy time, so I need to get out there fairly quickly. and we needed to evaluate. So yeah, from our end, that was very much stabilized. The game was still going on, so it's like, who's going inside, who's staying on the sideline. We need somebody who knows Chris to go into the visiting side, because this was at U of T, to be with him to ensure that, you know, he's going to the hospital, that either we can direct if we can, or he's getting there safely, and all these kinds of things. So yeah, he went to the hospital. Fractured fibula. And let me just, I'll just pull up a screen just for a second, because I think I had one here. Yeah. So I think you can see my screen here. This is from an article I was reading up on. This is an NFL, fibular fractures in the NFL by player position. You guys can read it. You can see at the top is offensive linemen, and then they get into this article talking about sort of like care and treatment of fibular fractures specific to the NFL. And they're talking about roughly 16 a year in the NFL, fibular fractures, majority of which come from running and passing plays. That's not surprising, but they found quite a few actually during kickoff as well. So just some statistical evidence here, and the articles here. I'll put this article up in the discussion as well. It's a pretty cool article. Fib fractures aren't that common, but I saw at least I saw three at York with football alone. I know in hockey there's been a couple in the NHL as well. So they're not uncommon, but they're certainly not the most common injury, but certainly something to be aware of. So yeah, so strapped up, sent to the hospital, x-rayed, and what was the procedure from there? What were you guided on? And then if you can jump back in when you came into the clinic with us, what we were looking for and doing with you at the time.
Yeah, so right away it was just, I think I was in the clinic about 4 or 5 days after with the air cast, so we can get it off, get my leg breathing and all that. And a lot of it was trying to deal with swelling at first, obviously get that down. And yeah, slow at first, slow for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Pretty sure we took it pretty easy, just made sure ankle was still moving good and all that. Because we got the x-ray to show that I didn't have any ankle issues after that. So yeah, pretty slow at first, but then we got into the gym, started doing all the exercises that killed me. But yeah, that one was tough because it was a lot longer than I thought. When I heard my leg was broke, I didn't think it was going to be such a long recovery, but found out it took a lot to get back. That's
Yeah, and I think that's also big to touch on, because that sort of brings us to sport. That brings us to position played within a sport, and these are things that are going to dictate how the rehab process goes. Big guy like you carrying a lot of weight, we know that the fibula is not necessarily weight bearing at all points in the gait, but in your position, there's a ton of rotation that happens at the knee. There's a ton of rotation that happens at the ankle, and we know the fibula runs from the knee to the ankle, so we have to connect the dots and sort of go a long distance from just the 4 to 6 weeks that are standard for a fracture. So the healing time is standard for fractures for the most part, but then we take into account the size of the human and then the requirements in sports. The rehab definitely looked a little bit different for you. I know that when you're in the air cast in the first couple of days, it was always about managing the inflammation and managing the pain. That's always first and foremost. And then it was, how soon can we get you in the gym to get your upper body to keep that on point, your opposite leg, because there is a little bit of crossover in terms of training the other side when one side is incapacitated. Tons of good research on that as well. And then, so motor patterns and looking at the ankle. We definitely didn't stress the ankle from a rehab standpoint, but staying within the planes of motion that were accessible and compliant with the restrictions. Again, resources, like we had a good set of doctors and good access to orthopedics, as well as sport medicine physicians, as well as the hospital for imaging and things like that. So we definitely looked at the ankle. I think we looked at the ankle after the fact, right? Like we had an X-ray done, or was that? Because
that's the ankle I blew out in high school a little bit. ATFL and interosseous were both gone.
Yeah. And
then it was fine though. And then after that, it kind of reflared a weird issue in the cartilage that we had to get looked at. But yeah, nothing too severe with that.
Right. And so from a rehab standpoint, we've touched on it, and And I think, let me just pull up one more thing here with my screen, only because it's really relevant. And I've been doing this course online as of lately, which is Altus Performance Therapy course, really, really good course. And this is a quote that was on there, so I just cut and paste. I blacked it out and put practitioner because that was a specific profession that this athlete was talking about. But it's a really interesting read from an athlete standpoint. And I just throw it up there. Can you guys see the whole thing, or have I blocked it off on the right side? You can see the whole thing? Yeah. Okay. So what athletes are thinking, and sometimes they're saying, and this is an Olympic javelin athlete, and performance therapy, Altus runs this. And again, I've taken this directly from them and just to borrow for the purposes, because I think this is spot on. It's like, we need to know what you're doing with the sport. And this is it right here. We would understand why they present with certain, niggles is the quote here, but you understand why certain things can and can't happen the more time you spend on the sideline. So again, I would encourage any therapist who is with a team or not, but you're seeing athletes that are in sport, to get to the sideline and really get to know either the sport itself or each one of the athletes if you're there on a day-to-day basis, because this provides a ton of insight, and athletes feel it as well. They feel it when we are there and present and care, and also I think we pick up on a whole lot more than just having an athlete walk into the room, laying down on a plinth and hoping we can help or fix them. So a really good quote here, and I'll provide that in the discussion as well. So so those are really big things. Those were a couple of really big injuries, obviously, early on. And then, so while we're there, I feel like I'm talking as the therapist because that's what I do, and you're talking as the athlete. What have some of your interactions been like with therapy and performance staff? You feel like majority of them are pretty positive? Has there been some struggles? Or what have they been like, I guess, for you from high school onward?
Yeah, obviously high school, just lack of resources, didn't really have access to much apart from like the back and the ankle. Then it was just go to the hospital. Okay, here's a piece of paper with what you should do to strengthen while you're rehabbing and all that kind of stuff. And that was about it for me. And then once I got to York, we obviously have a lot more resource there. We have the AT program there. So a lot of student therapists, a lot of therapists. There's you, Tracy, Cindy in there every day. And yeah, pretty much even into the pros, never really had a negative experiments with an AT or doctors or anything. It's all been pretty good, especially with student therapists. One thing that was great at York was both the players and the students knew that we could learn from each other. Like I needed them just as bad as they needed the AT program and to be with our team. So it's kind of a mutual respect there between understanding that they're students and understanding that we're athletes desperate to come back. So it's a good balance, give and take kind of thing, where if they didn't know that they were doing, they were confident enough to go ask for help. As an athlete, if we had any questions or any doubts on what we were doing, we could ask a question openly without having any kind of negative feedback, any kind of, I know what I'm doing. It was more of an educating me on what I needed to do to get better and why it would get me better. And I feel like that's been pretty much how it's been for me all the way to the pros, kind of a really good working relationship with ATs in terms of they know what I want, I know what they're trying to do, and working together to get the result.
Yeah, fantastic, man. Those a couple of really good points there. And for the student therapists, all of us have been one. If not, we still are. I still consider myself very much a student. Just the therapist part is, I guess, some sort of professional credential. But yeah, always a student and always learning. And I think that mutual respect and the fact that everybody's working to learn together and work together really pulls us in the same direction, right? There's passion and there's compassion and there's all these things that are built into being an athlete and being part of a program in Canada, where there's only very few programs, but for the most part, every student therapist that's on a sideline with a team or in a program is passionate on some level and definitely willing to learn on virtually every level. So really good to hear. And then that other point about, resources not being there in high school, this is it. Like this is what we talked about with Dr. DiNardo, was sort of like an opportunity with amateur sport to sort of have AT come a little bit more front line in terms of being present or generating a presence with amateur sport where, it's great to be on the sideline and be able to evaluate, but then what? You send them to the emergency room, and then they're in a brace, and then they get out of the brace, and who are they seeing? And how is that relevant to sport? I'm not knocking other professions by any means, but I'm speaking from experience as an athletic therapist and a sideline therapist. for a large portion of my career, and that connection from clinic to field is massive, and I just think it's completely underappreciated in certain settings, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean there's plenty of room here for therapists, athletic therapists coming out, athletic therapists who are willing to put in the time and effort to maybe build that up. And I think I see a lot of nodding heads, and I think we're all in agreement with that. It's just a matter of establishing that, which I'm smiling about, because I know there's a few in the room that have this as a passion of theirs, and we're gonna push this a little bit as things come around. But yeah, some really, really great points, and your work with them is fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. So let me just jump off there. I just got distracted by a couple messages. So Julie asked a question about the therapy that took place following the thoracic fractures, or was it just braced for a period of time and then you were sent back to sport? That was a long time ago. That was high school. If you can recall some of that, that'd be helpful. I know that our team at York at the time you were in high school, so none of us in the room were your therapists. So if you want to dive into it a little bit, you can.
It was largely just so it happened on a Friday. By Monday, I had the custom brace all fitted, and that was pretty much October till March wearing the brace. That month was return to play, so I was allowed on the ice. I played hockey then, so I was allowed to skate, allowed to do drills, but just in a controlled setting, no contact. And then going into the end of March, April, I was cleared to actually play full contact, and I kind of just jumped right back in. Rehab and all that pretty much was just a recommendation, just a sheet of paper being like, you need to strengthen your core. Here's some generic stuff you can do without kind of bending my back too much. So like leg lifts, stuff like that. Just, it wasn't very in depth, just enough to know what I needed to focus on when I was getting out of the brace, because it really held me up straight up. So obviously my back was probably got a lot weaker. And I felt the effects for that for probably a couple of years after that, which is lower back issues.
Yeah.
But nothing too severe. Just would have to go to the chiropractor, get some work done, soft tissue and all that, and it would go away in a couple of weeks. But flared up a little bit for a couple of years. But yeah, the rehab was pretty simple for that.
Yeah, so I think what I hear, if I'm reading between the lines, is there's definitely some room for education there for you.
Yeah.
Understand what you could or couldn't do, or when you were supposed to, and timing of these things. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really referred, like you said, it was in the emergency room. I'd go in for my monthly updates and all that, and it wasn't really, okay, you should go to this clinic, which has the physiotherapist and all that can help you with that. It's kind of just, okay, go home, see you in a month kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I hope that helps, Julie. And again, like I'll put the article up with the fib fractures in the NFL, and that touches on it, and there's a lot of good references in that article as well to rehabbing fib fractures. So keep reading, keep learning. This is the idea of this as well. Is like, I have a good question about this. And if we don't answer it here, definitely there are references and resources out there to further the learning. And that's the idea here. Arsh asked a question, jumping back to that fib fracture, transport off the field when Chris sustained the fib fracture. Was a gaiter used to drive off the field? And was there on-field splinting prior to transport? So we did not use a gaiter at the time, if I recall. Did we?
I don't think there was one available.
Yeah,
or something like that. Yeah.
But we air splinted you on the field, and then re-splinted him again once we got him into the doctor's room, or the athletic therapy room at U of T. Yeah, so we had those great the vacuum splints. I think we used at the time, and it was non-displaced. And it was definitely not an open fracture or anything like that. I mean, we could get crepitus, and it was maybe a little bit mobile. But again, Arsh, and for everybody in the room, like, we're not going to move somebody if we have any threat of anything beyond the fracture itself, right? There's no arterial component. There was no sensation change above or below the injury. He was still lucid. He was not in any risk of shock, but obviously we had our shock kit follow Chris in as well, because U of T had one on their sidelines. So we're always in communication that way prior to games. If our kit needs to be used, then the other one becomes both teams' access, that kind of thing in an injury. So yeah, so good questions all around on those ones. If there's more, please feel free to jump in. There's another injury that I want to dive a little bit deeper into. We're at 51 minutes minus 5 or so when we started. Chris, are you still good for time? We keep going here?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm good for a while.
We have one of your biggest fans wants to ask a question by Mike, so just let me pull him up here. And where'd you go? Can you do it? You just do it if you can. I don't think I need to unmute.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right, Chris.
Emerson,
What's up, buddy?
you know?
So, anyways, to pretext this, guys, for everyone in the room, if you don't know, me and Chris we're teammates, roommates, and we've been good friends for a long time now. And I've had a question for a few of the other athletes that have come on, but I think Chris can do the question maybe the most justice. So I think for maybe a lot of the young students or young professionals in the room here, I think you can touch on with your story the most, maybe what you've learned through the adversities that you kind of faced, and, maybe kind of remembering back to when we were talking about how to, we wanted to get to the CFL, and you ended up getting there through a lot of adversity. So what did you learn, and what can you pass on?
Definitely learned to use all my resources. So I was strength coaches, ATs, positional coaches. Like I never hesitated really to reach out to them and ask for help. So like James, for example, if I had an issue with my squat, where I filmed my squat one day and noticed a little butt wink at the bottom, I went to James, I texted him, asked him if he was in the clinic that day, went in, saw him that afternoon to talk about that, how I could fix it. And it would mostly just do with posture, engaging my core, just day-to-day, walking around, keep my core engaged. Positional coaches, reaching out to them, seeing when they're free to get extra work. Strength coaches, any questions, any issues, I always go straight to them first rather than guessing and kind of just working through it or skipping something. Yeah, just a lot of my journey to CFL was just maximizing all my resources at York. And that was something that was very accessible to me, going to that university with the AT clinic always being open, Adam or one of the assistants being down in the strength room all the time. Like, it was just the resources were there for me to have. So definitely took full advantage of that. And then a lot of it was just learning self-accountability. Like, you were with me in my first year. I showed up at York at about 215 pounds, which is about 75, 90 pounds underweight for my position. So a lot of it was learning how to work. I knew what I wanted to do, knew where I wanted to finish, but I just had to learn the process on the way. So like Jamal, I had to put on 45, 50 pounds my first year. That was quite the journey, but it worked out. Like playing with Emerson, living with Emerson in that summer, and then moving forward through a university career, I was just able to pick from everyone around me their positive attributes, and then even some teammates, like, okay, this is what I want to avoid doing. I don't want to be that teammate. I don't want to be that player. This is what someone's doing that I shouldn't be doing. And I could look at someone like Emerson, Max, the guys that were veterans on the team that I ended up living with. I was able to kind of pick the best aspects of everyone's game and try to incorporate it into me. And, just resources, using them, using your teammates, therapists, strength coaches, positional coaches, offensive coordinators to learn everything you can and put yourself in a position, just control what you can and see what happens. It's kind of how I approached it the whole way. So worked out.
Yeah, man. A really great question, Emerson. Appreciate you jumping in. And Chris, obviously a strong answer. And don't downplay the fact that you tapped into a lot of things within yourself too. You changed dramatically in the course of 5 years in university, which I don't think we do a good enough job evaluating ourselves. And I may not have talked to you about this even at the time. I think probably in fourth and fifth year when we started spending a little bit more time together in prep for the CFL, you changed drastically. Your work ethic, your grit, your willingness, your tenacity to get what you wanted, to go after what you wanted, these kinds of things. And definitely, like we've talked on here, is resources and having conversations with people. And what you tend to find, especially in the therapy world, for me, is looking back now, all the conversations that I had that I was scared to have turned out to be very, very beneficial down the line, right? Just going up and introducing myself to somebody like Scott Livingston early on, and then so that you remember my name down the road and we had a conversation, something like this, something like jumping on these calls and just having some interaction with somebody across the country. Like, these are big things that turn into resources and help everybody move forward, the athlete as well as the therapist and the doctor, everybody. So just so everybody knows as well, Emerson is now, he was a former football player at York with Chris, and he's now the assistant strength and conditioning coach at York University. So he'll probably be on here as a guest too from the performance side down the line. So appreciate you jumping in. And Chris, again, for the answer. So let's jump into fifth year. So fifth year was a significant injury again. And again, we had to go down the road to that stadium again at U of T. And I'm not sure which way we were going on the field on this one. But
same way, just a little further up.
Yeah, a little further up the field. So the offense was a little bit better that year. But same result in the game, I think, if I remember correctly. But anyway, you took a few pretty good blows in that game. And you want to dive in? You jump in and give it, and then I'll sort of give the therapy angle and where we were coming from with it.
Yeah, so that on like the fib. No, same thing. So I was playing center again. My fourth year, which was a healthy year, I played guard. Might have been why it was healthy. But, I got drafted, and then this was the year I got sent back for my fifth season with York. And, going down the field at U of T, it was a wet day, so it was a little slippery on that field. That field's kind of notorious for getting slick pretty quick. And pretty much I got off the ball early, got a nice jump on the play. My guard was a little late off the ball, and then what ended up happening, I was fully engaged with someone, driving him down the field on a one-on-one block. The guard got tripped up somehow, fell into my ankle, rolled it going inside. So on the, I'm not sure the specific word, but the inside rolled. And then knew something was wrong and stayed down. I think then James came out, went off, taped it up pretty good, and definitely knew something was wrong. I couldn't really push down on my toes. Like I couldn't extend my ankle, couldn't extend at all. And but while I was down, we were in the red zone, and this backup center snapped the ball right over the quarterback's head in that time and took us out of scoring position in what would have been a one-score game. So that was pretty big motivation for me to get out there regardless of what I was feeling. Taped it up the best we could. It was pretty heavy tape job, threw the cleat back on, went back out. About 2 plays later, my right guard was a little slow off the ball, fell into the same ankle, rolling it the opposite way, just as bad. That was a lot of yelling and swearing. Ended up just getting up and finishing the drive, went off. Told James it's much worse. Again, we just added some more tape, trying to keep it in because the backup center was scaring everybody with his snaps on the sideline. And, finished the game. But I think kind of when the game was over and all that pain was done with for the most part, kind of realized I might not be coming back from this one, but, we'll get into it. We tried for a bit. But, it was pretty much just 2 blows going each way on the same ankle. And, I just kind of devastated it pretty bad.
Yeah. So from that end, getting Chris off the field, obviously, again, he stayed down. So we knew that it was something that was obviously significant enough to keep him down on the field. It's turf, so the earth didn't smell that good. He wasn't just staying down there to hang out. We got him off, tested him out. There was a couple things that were definitely amber flags from an evaluative standpoint. I would have to have the notes in front of me, which I don't right now. But amber, obviously not red flags, or he wouldn't have gone back in. But regardless, the situation of the game, the situation of the athlete, Chris had a career ahead of him in football. He had been signed. He was going to get re-signed. That was all the talk at the time. So keeping him on the field was an extra consideration. This wasn't just a first or second year athlete who could spend some time and we'll just get him off and try to take as long as we needed to. There was a bit of urgency on that end at the time of the injury and then certainly through the rehab process. But in the game, we taped it. We did everything we could. Again, there was some ligamentous and some instability. Taped it up. And again, tape doesn't take away anything, really. Just adds a little bit of support. He said, fine. I think you saw that snap and just about jumped off the table and ran on the field anyway. I guess I'm not tackling him. So not to make light of it, the second injury happened. Tried to retape it again. You still wanted to go, I think, at the time, if I'm not recalling incorrectly. Tried it, got you doing some sideline stuff. And so, again, at a football game, like doing sideline stuff and having extra bodies on the sideline, I think we had somebody push up against you because you're like, yep, I'm fine. I can get my stance. Look, I'm like, well, that's not really the full thing that you need to do. And you know that. Yeah. They had somebody push against you that was maybe a little bit stronger than me at the time. And then we decided, we're gonna rule you out for this one and never play a game at U of T again. I think was the also that we agreed on. That was two major injuries at that place. So if we don't have to go back there again, that would be fine. Yeah. So then the conversations got to the point where the season was I think it was middle or late September. I went back and looked at the schedule when that one happened. So there were still a few games left, and we try to get the swelling out as quickly as possible. We try to manage the pain from a clinical standpoint and from a function standpoint. I think we booted you. We may even give you crutches for a few days after, just to unload you as best as possible. And then it was always like, okay, well, we're definitely not next week, but 2 weeks. We'll keep looking at 2 weeks out, and we sort of we chunked the season down, what was remaining, into 2-week components to see if and when we could be functional enough to get you back on the field. Had you start doing some drill work, I think probably 2 or 3 weeks down the line.
Yeah, we had a good bye week. So I think it was miss one game, bye week, and then towards late in the week going into Carleton, we decided, okay, let's see what we can, like, swelling went down. It was looking a little better. And then it was kind of the same on-field test pregame. I did a little bit on the field just by myself, and then pregame was a big test we did with some contact and some directional movement with you. And I remember, like, on the sideline at U of T, I took a set, and I was like, yep, good to go. Like, we're good. You had the big tape job done. I was ready to go. And then you're like, come on, like, that wasn't full speed. Called me out on it. Did it full speed, a little bit of a grimace, said, okay, now change direction. And then the lies really came through there on my part, because took a set, tried to redirect, and just kind of fell over on the field. And at that point, it was pretty much just, okay, this isn't great. Yeah, that was in between the results, I think.
Yeah. And so that kind of takes me back to that quote I put up earlier. Is being there on the sideline, knowing your athlete. That was the attempt at the final game of the year, right, of your fifth year.
No, that was the last game we actually tried, though.
The senior game, right?
The senior game, I dressed and ran out, but didn't do anything. That was, I think, probably the 5th game out of 8 we tried right before the game. And then after that point, it was pretty much, okay, we're probably not going to make it back this season.
Yeah, right. So what we did from a therapeutic standpoint was really look at the season, and then it was time to reevaluate once we got a couple weeks in and we weren't making a lot of progress. We weren't making a lot of headway with either the swelling or the functionality of the ankle. We took a step back and looked at the bigger picture, right? And then this is where you and I started discussing, okay, like, if you don't play again, do you have enough tape? Do you have enough of the things that you need to get you re-signed? They already signed you once, so they saw something they liked. So then maybe we start to consider a really, really thorough rehab, inclusive of seeing an orthopedic surgeon for your ankle, specifically to the ligaments. We have a great ankle, I think they still have it at York, ankle and foot orthopedic surgeon who's out of Humber River as well, who will actually be on here as a guest in a couple weeks, talking specifically about surgical options in the ankle. But and so we had that discussion. Do we go surgical? Do we not go surgical? And maybe you can take the reins on this one in terms of what we talked about and how that felt and looked in your mind.
Yeah, so once we got the results, obviously we thought it was over, but got the results, like, okay, there's no way I could play football again in the near future. I think it was grade 3 ATFL, PTFL, and CFL all in one go. So at that point, it was just calling my agent, figuring out what the situation is with me going down. He said, we're good, just take care of it, be ready for the CFL season, which was in May. But then it was, I think the situation was, if we had the surgery, I wouldn't be ready to train until the end of March. Lower body, really doing agility, much lateral strength work or anything in the lower body. So I would have had pretty much a 2-month off season. Would have been a great bencher, but everything else would have gone to hell. Or we could try the rehab, potentially be able to train January, February with secure movements like squats and all that, not too much lateral yet, but at least be able to keep the strength up while we continued to rehab before doing the lateral. So it's pretty much weighing out the option of, would I stand a chance with surgery, which I guess was you can correct me if I'm wrong, but was the more sure option to make sure it healed properly. Would I have a chance of playing in the CFL if I only had a 2-month off season or 2 months of full training, or if it was better just to risk it with try the rehab first. If the rehab doesn't work, get the surgery. And since I wouldn't be able to make a team anyways, I can get the surgery and try the next year. So there's kind of weighing those two options about how much time I need to be ready to play a CFL season.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to sort of surgical options and is that going to guarantee healing, there's basically three main procedures for ankle repairs, and those are non-anatomic reconstructions, anatomic repairment, and then anatomic reconstruction. So those are the three main types of procedures for the ankle, and those basically look like various configurations of like tendon grafts to accomplish restriction function of the ligament without repairing the ligament themselves. That's non-anatomic reconstruction. And then you have anatomic repairment, where you're trying to restore the normal anatomy and the joint mechanics, right? So you're doing that by repairing the ligaments, either shortening them or fixing them to bony surfaces and positioning them such that they're still there. And then anatomic reconstruction uses tendon grafts again to sort of recreate the joint biomechanics anatomically. So you're trying to replicate the ligaments that are in question or are torn or ruptured. So from a clinical standpoint, like those are your options. And then looking statistically at ankle sprains, like I think something like up to 40% of people who experience a first-time lateral ankle sprain develop chronic instability. Right. And I just kind of was reading through some hamstring stuff the other day and why hamstring issues are still an issue and in sports. And the one thing that keeps jumping out to me is like when the rehab isn't given its full lifetime, re-injury is the obvious option. And with this one particularly, the time frame really worked out. We said, okay, like the end of the season is we're not getting back in for the end of the season. So why don't we just crush this rehab, really lay it out nicely. We'll take a surgical approach to a non-surgical intervention, and really jumped into a lot of proprio stuff, a lot of knee work, a lot of hip work, a lot of just like taking the time to look at the rest of your frame while the ankle wasn't accessible. And so same thing with hamstring strains is like I think we talked about it earlier in one of the sessions, but like you're looking at injury timelines when somebody like you, if you come out on an injury report on TSN and they're saying like, oh yeah, ankle sprain, so somewhere between 2 and 8 weeks he'll be back. Yeah, if he's not a center that has to take X amount of load, take jab steps, do all the things, pivot, shift, run up the field, do these things. So we really took a long, hard look at what you were going to take to get back to where you needed to get back to. And the rehab was amazing, I think. Like your input, not our layout. Our layout was very much like, I'm a blank calendar kind of therapist where I look at an endpoint, we have a target goal at the end of the calendar, and I work backwards from there. And if we miss something along the way, we can input it, and we can look at like, we have sort of I always like, I think my dad's on the call too. He did a lot of color coding stuff when we were younger. So I color code, red, yellow, and green. And like, we need certain things to be green before we move on. And we definitely need green before a certain timeline. And I know a couple of the sport medicine centers down in the South in the US use that as like a target for ACL reconstruction, these kinds of things. So applying this to your ankle was very much, look at a calendar. How much time do we have? Where can we be conservative? Where can we push? And we'll definitely push where we can, but definitely respect the tissue and the healing and allow the actual rehab to meet its maximum timeline, right? Because if we don't, and those ligaments aren't given the opportunity or the environment to heal to a satisfactory level, it's obvious no matter how good the rehab is, if they haven't fully healed, the next time you put your foot down and get into those positions, you're probably going to end up with an injury there or an injury elsewhere. So that was kind of the approach. If anybody has specific questions on that one from a therapeutic standpoint, I'm happy to answer. But again, for me, it's like really knowing the athlete, the position, what's required, and then the timeline. Obviously, the draft and like a career in football was heavily taken into consideration with our discussions with a surgeon. Anytime you go in and operate on a joint, you're changing what's natural to that person's body, regardless of if it's type 1, type 2, or type 3 of those surgeries. You're changing something. And as soon as you do that, the body has to react, right? And so those are considerations. And Dr. Desai is a great surgeon. But at the same time, if we can avoid surgery and have a better result, let's take that any day of the week because I'm better off down the line. So. Yeah, man. I appreciate you sharing the story. Anything else on that one that you recall? The rehab was great. I think by January we had you back in the gym and you were in team lifts. Yep. And by February you were in like pre-draft lifts. I think Adam had you back into like, all right,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think mid-January we started the triphasic lifting, me and Jamal together with Adam. So yeah, by late January I was pretty much maxing out squats again. And then it was obviously a little slower getting the lateral movement and the footwork drills. But we'd have Adam down there watching me when I got reintroduced to doing kick steps and all that. You came down to watch me do a bunch of movements, make sure everything was good. I wasn't compensating somewhere else. So yeah, it was a slow process, but definitely worked out for the best considering going into Argos camp, and I had no issues with the ankle that next season. In the off season, no issues, just swelling. So I did the ice baths, which killed me every time. But yeah, it was pretty smooth considering how bad the injury was to begin with. So.
Yeah. So you touch on a couple other things that are important from a therapeutic standpoint or from a rehab standpoint as well. All of these things are done. So in the season, we tried a lot of on-field stuff because we had access to it and because we were sort of navigating the fibroblastic phase and like the repair phase. Like we're trying to say, like, we're miracle workers. You can just jump back in and be on the field, only because our timeline was very, very condensed. Once we got to the off season and the season is no longer going to be in consideration. Now it's re-signing and getting back to the CFL season. That completely changed. So then it was always safe environment first. Flat ground, no spikes, bare feet, like looking at the mechanics of the ankle, looking at dorsiflexion, looking at, combined motions of the ankle, looking at how the knee was moving, looking at how the hip was moving, and all these other things that you can take the time with. This is where the collaborative approach again with Adam and his knowledge and the strength and conditioning people downstairs, and the access to the resources that we had. But again, safe environment first before putting you back on the field is an intangible if and when you have the space and time to do so, for sure. Yeah.
And then the at-home program, you had me with the rubber bands and all that, doing strengthening at night. So it was really it was around the clock kind of thing to deal with for a couple months there. So.
Yeah, right. And that was the other part of it I'm glad you brought that up was all the monotonous stuff. I would check in. We would check in every now and then in the clinic and have you in front of us, but that was wasted time because you nailed that stuff. That was wasted clinical time. So we really chunked this thing out. It's like, okay, you've got this. You have the power to do this on your own. And I know you as an athlete are going to. Here's the bands. Here's the whatever. Here's the reps and sets. And here's the schematic. Yeah. Do this at home. And that then shortens our clinical time. So you're not getting sick of this ugly mug on a daily basis barking at you about what you should or shouldn't be doing. And kind of how's that rehab. So yeah, great point. Great points. If anybody has anything specific with regards to any of these injuries or Chris, please feel free to type in some messages. We're at an hour 15. I won't keep you any longer than 10 more minutes. It's been really insightful chat from my end. It's bringing back a lot of the things that we talked about. Hopefully everybody in the room is taking something away from it. And again, appreciate your time and everybody who's in the room being here, listening, being a part of this and helping this thing grow in terms of awareness of the profession, awareness of the collaborative approach, and listening to our athletes. It goes a long way, and I think it helps everybody hearing your story. And to be honest, I hope more people hear your story. I think it'll keep you in the CFL a lot longer as well, just because, man, you're freaking fierce on the field. And I don't know what a Tiger King is, but I'd call you Tiger King. That's for sure. So how about at home, man? What are you guys ordering in food? Have you had anything nice that you can share?
A couple. There's a pizza place by us. It's pretty good, FBI pizza, but the go-to is usually jerk chicken with from Alwyn's Bakery. A pretty good jerk platter and the sandwiches. So that's usually the go-to after a lift. Just get some chicken in me. So.
Yeah. Have you had Jamal make you any yet?
I haven't had his jerk chicken yet, so I'm really disappointed in him for that. When I was working at the cheesecake place, the industrial bakery there, I'd bring him some cheesecakes, but I haven't seen any jerk chicken yet. So. Yeah, I'll have to get on him a little bit for that.
Yeah. I saw some of his posts on Instagram when you were here. I was telling him about it, but and I'd considered giving up like the current state of vegetarianism that I'm in to try his chicken. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see
It looks pretty good. It looks pretty good.
Another good question. Another good question coming in. What's the mindset of getting injured and going through the rehab process? How much did you rely on the therapist for emotional or mental support?
I think more for that was my roommates because actually with the fib fracture, Emerson, who asked the question, about 6 days after that, he tore his ACL. So we were both heavily rehabbing together for a very long time. And I think one of the hardest days for us was like 35 degrees out. And we had to make the 2-3 kilometer trek on crutches to the clinic. And it was both of us just absolutely sweating our butts off, crutching in the long way, and then taking breaks, just looking at each other and just be like, oh man, like this is what it's come to kind of thing. So I think the therapists and the ATs help for peace of mind. Like just being confident, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to work, this is a timeline. So that just helps with the peace of mind, being like, okay, this is going to be a long road, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But the day-to-day, I think the emotional part was mostly my roommates. Like when I was in a cast on my ankle and fib, it helped me out with dishes, helped me out with stuff that I couldn't do on crutches. Nick Naylor would always provide some comedic relief, playing a little tune on his guitar whenever I'd come down the stairs. He goes, like kind of mocking me, but keeps the spirits up. So a lot of that was just my roommates and teammates, actually. But the peace of mind definitely came from the therapy staff.
Yeah. Great answer. Great question, Merce. Really appreciate that too. It's not easy. It's a hard thing for therapists too, from our end, is to navigate, when you're not feeling well, unless you're somebody who's like very overtly, I'm not doing well today, or I'm struggling. So to constantly keep that in the back of the mind is something that I've taken away from working with athletes. I wasn't very good at it. I'm not an expert at it, but I'm certainly much more in tune with the humane aspect of the athlete in front of me, the human being that's in front of me now than I ever have been before. And if and when I've done some work here with UB, and Sasha's on the call, so I'm not fibbing, I don't think, but like we do a lot of like stuff that's pretty simplistic and checking in, as well as like breath work has gone a long way for me in working with athletes. Is just like, if I can see an athlete breathe and I can just sort of drop in some little bits of some of the wooey stuff now. I never would have been keen to do that before, but there's such value in sort of catching the breath, watching how the diaphragm is a part of everything, and these kinds of things. So good questions, great answer, and I think very honest, very open, and this is an area where therapists, young, old, new, not new, can always improve. Is checking in on the mental component, checking in on the emotional. Like every one of the athletes that's been on here has said that's a huge part of everything. And so I'm speaking again out of experience. Like early on in my career, it was very much like, that's a shoulder. I need to get that shoulder better, and I need to do it better than anybody else because that's my job. I need to get that shoulder better as a therapist. And that wasn't really a good approach looking back at it. It was my approach at the time, and I thought it was good. But now, having learned and done some of the things and interacted with some of the people that I have and listened to these stories and gone back through my career, like for sure, the mental support and the emotional support, I think it's growing awareness across the board. And therapists, again, you don't have to be schooled in it, but you do have to figure out a way to ask those questions and refer onward if you don't have access to somebody in-house. So yeah. So there's another question here. Jillian, is that in reference to the same question, like with regards to Emerson's injury, or his opinion as a strength coach, a strength and conditioning coach? Just let me know, just so I'm clear on where you want to go with that question. So good stuff, I think, and really deep and valuable answers, Chris. Appreciated. Okay, so the chicken, yeah, you need to get that. FBI pizza, that was a thing in university too, at York. It wasn't FBI. It might have been FBI pizza because that's where you were. But
yeah, they had another location up in Woodbridge there for a bit, so it could have been.
Yeah. Maybe that's right. So that's great. Emerson's experience, or did he rely on the AT? So Chris, you mentioned support of your roommates, and Emerson was going through an injury at the time. I don't want to take this too far off of Chris because this is the angle, but Emerson, in your experience, did you feel Chris relied on you guys or the ATs? You can unmute yourself if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking about that time, I think Chris nailed it. Like, we relied on each other. Like, it was essentially me and Chris almost against the world, it felt like at that time. But like he said, I think it all revolved around who we were with on a day-to-day basis, and that was in the therapy clinic every day. And I think that emotional support came from us, came from each other, but also came from you, James, and everyone that we worked with there, like giving us that, like you said, hope, right? Hope. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah. And because I was there for both these guys, major injuries, and at the time, my angle on it was always, at that time at least, was to be the rock in terms of like, you're going to get better and here's how, because I know exactly what I'm doing. I've dealt with this in the past. I've dealt with all of these injuries. And let me be that end. I was never a mushy guy as a therapist when I was at York until probably I got to know these guys at the back end of their careers. And now I'm a whole lot softer than I was before, just in terms of making myself available on that end. I don't mean soft in a bad way. I just mean like I'm more available to be empathetic to the emotional side. Like, I was always very science-based and very like, okay, you're an 8-week option, you're a 12-week option. It wasn't the humane part. Like I said, I always felt like part of my role, definitely, and not every therapist can be everything, and I'm definitely one of those. Like, my role was certainly to nail a rehab, to give you information, to inform you, and hopefully you can take that as part of the mental well-being, knowing that you're going to get better, knowing that you're going to get the best care possible when you walk through the door, as many times as possible. Anyway, after so many significant injuries, Chris, what kept you going? Where did you get your perseverance? It's probably not like a single answer, but like, what keeps you going, man?
It's gonna be a little bit of a longer answer. It's kind of like just kind of my outlook on everything to do with football mostly. Growing up, I was always pretty good at sports naturally. Like, hockey did well, baseball did well, track did well, football and all that. But I never really put in the extra time as an athlete. I'd go to practice, go to the games, do my part, do well, and that was it. So hockey, as I started getting older, I wouldn't go to the camps. I wouldn't go to the skating schools. I just wasn't interested in doing that stuff because it wasn't fun. I wasn't playing the game. It was skating around without sticks for an hour and then just gassing it the entire time. I hated every minute of it. And I think that experience with hockey, when I started to fall off, not in the sense that I wasn't good for where I was playing, but it wasn't like, okay, let's go to the OHL and see what happens with the NHL. It's not that I wasn't interested. I just wasn't taking the steps needed to get there. And that learning experience had me kind of shift my mentality with football when I was done high school. I came to the realization after a summer season, like, I'm not ready for this to be over. I'm not ready to stop playing competitive football because I've only been playing it for 4 or 5 years. It's a late entry sport. I wanted to play as much football as possible. So I think it all started with my mentality going into York. I made it like my friends around me were asking, like, what was I planning to do? And pretty much from 2011 on, it was, I'm going to the CFL. Like, I'm making it happen. And my mentality was, whatever happens, I never want to be able to look back and ask what if. So I had a goal at the end of the line. I was going to do everything it took to get there. And if I didn't make it, I was going to be able to look back on my career and be like, I wouldn't have changed anything. And I think that's kind of gotten me to where I am today with Winnipeg, because with all the injuries, like James said, he'd educate us, teach us, inform us about our injuries, inform us about the path we need to take. And for me, it was, okay, to the therapist, to the clinic staff, everyone is like, this is my goal. What's next? Like, what do I have to do now with your understanding of what's going on in my career right now? What do I have to do next to continue on that path? And I was always given good guidance how to get there from coaches, ATs, doctors, surgeons. Everybody helped me along the way. But it was that kind of mentality of, I'm not leaving anything to guesswork. It's, I'm doing everything I can. If I'm good enough, I'm going to make it. If I'm not, I'll be able to look back satisfied with what I put together. And this year that really helped me because I'd work a 14-hour day drilling, and that's minus 20 weather. I got all the winter gear on. I'm hauling gear that weighs 100 to 150 pounds for 14 hours a day, and having to go to the gym 3 hours after that. And just the mentality was, I did whatever it took to get to this point. I'm not about to let it die because of one setback. I might have a year out of football, have a job that I can keep a roof over my head, keep food coming in. And I wanted to control everything I could. And it's kind of gotten me to where I am now. And that's pretty much where it comes from.
Yeah. What a powerful answer, man. Like, I don't think anybody could top that. And I think everybody feels that with your story and in the way you speak about it. And you're the heart and the soul of what we do as practitioners. All of us that have been on a sideline or in a clinic or just working with athletes, you drive us to be better. You drive us to be accountable, and just watching you persevere. And I mean this as a blanket statement to athletes, but you specifically, Chris, because I know you very well. I really respect you as a person, as a football player, and everything that you've done to this point. And there's no failures for you, man. There never was. And I feel like setbacks were just speed bumps, and you just, maybe you slowed the car down to get over them safely, but you just hit the road and kept going, man. And I really, really respect you for that, and look up to you for that. And there's a lot of things that I think I didn't say to you as a therapist at the time that maybe I'm saying now for the first time, or I'm reiterating. And I hope that you impacted all of us at York, and I can speak specifically to myself. I hold you very close to my heart when I look back at my career there, but also in my career moving forward. So with that said, I'll thank you for your time and your stories and your insight. And the idea here is to connect people to information and to athletes and to good people, and really drive this thing forward. So thank you so much for your time. Deeply, deeply appreciated it. That's an hour and a half that you didn't have to take, and makes a big difference for all of us as therapists and practitioners and attendees in the room. So thank you very much, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. Obviously the feeling's mutual. And I really like the picture you posted of us walking down the hill there at York. That's a good picture to keep in my back pocket. Just remember all that stuff we had to go through over those 5 years. So pretty happy Mike took that picture for us a couple of years ago.
That was a beauty. That was a beauty for sure. And so let's do it again, man. We'll be in touch moving forward as you go and as you're home. And if and when I get home, I'm not coming to Winnipeg in the middle of winter to watch a game, but if and when you're back against the Argos or Hamilton or something close when we're back, we'd love to be there for that. And I have some ideas down the line too, in terms of like a panel of athletes that I'd love to have you back for, on this show into the future as we keep this thing rolling and growing. So thank you again to everybody who made it tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for what you do for athletes and for the profession, for being here. This is Let's Chat. This is session 8, an athletic therapy roundtable. Next week, we have 2 practitioners. We're going to jump into a topic-themed week. Wednesday, we're going to jump on board neuroscience with Katie Mitchell. She's a PhD. She works for Thrive Neurosport on Instagram, I think is her handle. She is vastly intelligent and informed. She presented at the CATA conference, the last one out in Calgary, with a good friend of mine, Joe Hurtubise. But Katie Mitchell will be here Wednesday talking neuroscience. We'll jump into the concussion realm. We'll jump into the academic AT as much as the practitioner AT. And then next Sunday evening, we have Doctor of Chiropractic, Dr. Scott Howitt will be here. I'll reveal what we'll be talking about on Wednesday. It's going to be a big week for like the brains of therapists. So tell your friends, bring your notebooks. References will be up for this one again. And awesome to have you, Chris. Thanks, everybody. This is Let's Chat. Have a good evening.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.